Welcome to the Medicare Cafe. We are going to still do a quick pre-chat segment. We do appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We did have some technical difficulties earlier, so we are recording this episode and posting it in lieu of going live. However, comedy is sued just out of like stress. Like when you do live shows, I think Sadie, our producer, says it best that like when she makes as many mistakes as anybody else, but her mistakes are very public and get seen. Not saying this was a Sadie mistake. This was not Sadie's fault. This was an internet issue. But what I'm saying is when things go wrong, this nervous energy builds and things just kind of get kooky and crazy.
Yep.
We've had the giggles for the last 5 minutes throughout this entire process. And we're still doing a pre-chat. You didn't ask for this, but you didn't ask for anything, so here you are for free.
Exactly. You can't even type to us right now, so we can do whatever we want.
There are no rules. Have you seen those videos?
Probably.
And there are people, it's like when we let our interns run our social media, and it's the millennial.
It's like just the errors of it.
And it's just like this pure chaos of like what happens when we let Gen Zers run our social media. And
classic.
Anyway, that was us.
Still is to this day, actually. Oh.
Welcome to the Medicare Cafe, y'all. I could not let the quality of the live catch us down because today is my favorite day, and it is the last day of the Cross-Selling Symposium. So you'll get back to your normally scheduled programming following this week. This is the last week of the Cross-Selling Symposium. Today we're talking specifically about cancer insurance. It is by far my favorite product because I think it's the most undersold, underrepresented product out there, and it shows some of the biggest need. So today, like we've done with the rest of the cafe, today we're going to talk about what is cancer insurance, move into why it's important, moving into how to cross-sell it, how to talk about it, and then the products we recommend. But our company has a really big soft spot for cancer insurance. We've seen the difference it's made in our lives. Everybody has a cancer story. My father actually passed away of cancer in 2001. My mom and him did have cancer insurance and saw a direct impact of cancer insurance looked different then than it does now. It's actually way easier and way more simplified now than it used to be. But because of their having cancer insurance, I mean, my dad, it was, sick for 13 months and then they ended up with 0 hospital bills. Yeah. We'll talk about that, how it works and everything like that. But, we started off real goofy, real silly. And this is a really serious conversation. So we're going to try to keep the energy light, but it is really serious. It is something that makes a huge impact on your bank account 100%. And makes a huge impact on people's lives. I think one of the most necessary products. And we mentioned this, if you saw this on the live version, we're actually seeing that many people who have purchased cancer insurance did not do so through an agent. Yeah. They work directly with the carriers to do that. And so that's saying that the need for it is there. Yeah. Just agent involvement is down.
Yeah, I think it's really telling when the product is being sold, just not by the folks that you would generally hope to see it be sold by. Mm-hmm. Just really speaks volumes to that there's a huge desire and need, whether it's it's just out there. And you said it best. Everyone has a story. It's not something you have to truly explain your personal relationship. You just outline the word cancer. And I think everyone reviewing this right now immediately has a name in mind, an experience in mind, everything that kind of floods over them. So there's a lot that comes with this. And I'll kind of get us kickstarted just with cancer insurance as a whole.
Just to give you an idea, I have 10 minutes because I have a very important meeting in 10 minutes.
Heard.
I am so sorry for our audience viewers. Okay.
So, cancer insurance, what is it? At its bare bones, it's a product that provides financial relief. As if you take the skeletons of it, that's what it is. It's providing financial relief upon the diagnosis of cancer. And many of the products that we'll end up talking about are lump sum based. So, based off of that, once you get some of those lab results in and submitted to the carrier, then you'll receive that check come in the mail. The beauty of this product is that there's not a requirement on who has to use it for what. It is true freedom to these funds. And I think that was actually something you mentioned while we were trying to be live, was that there's just a relief that comes from you have freedom of these funds. You can use it however you want, whether it's the hospital bills like you outlined with your family's experience, or in many cases, some folks just have one last huzzah and do something they wanted to do their entire life, and that provides such an excitement and enjoyment of life.
And a legacy. There's part of
Exactly.
like leaving a legacy if like you're going to get better or you're not, depending on how. Because cancer does crazy things to people. People do not think logically, oftentimes whenever a cancer diagnosis is given. So one thing I will mention that there are two styles of cancer plans. We certainly favor one over the other. The first style is going to be basically a pay-per-service style of plan. It is basically every time you receive chemotherapy, a surgery, or you receive some sort of pathology or something like that, every time you get some sort of service, you get a payout for that. Pros of that is that there is no limit. Most of them do not have a limit on how much benefit you can receive from that. As long as you're submitting the claims, you get those benefits. Downside, lots of paperwork, lots of tracking. You have to be very involved and very diligent in your billing of your health care. The side that we tend to favor is going to be that lump sum amount. And that is one because, again, you submit a claim and you get that entirety of that lump sum. Again, pros and cons, very opposite. Pros, so easy, much less stressful, less tracking, just an overall better experience for the client. However, you are capped. And that capped is based off of the higher the premium, the higher the benefit you're able to qualify for. So again, if you're somebody who works with somebody that they're very much going to track that, they just want the most money, they're willing to work for it, maybe a per service would be better, but we don't necessarily see that. Most of the clients today are choosing to go that lump sum option.
100%.
So why are these plans important? How do they help? Again, like Ben was mentioning, we know that a lot of people who talked about these plans will say, won't my Medicare supplement? I'm on a Medicare supplement. I don't need that.
Yeah.
I'm on a Medicare plan. I'm on original Medicare. That is going to cover my expenses in the hospital. Well, just so you know, JAMA, the Journal Associated of Medicare or American Medicine is JAMA Association. Anyways, is a report done from 2016. So it is a dated report. However, they did note that somebody on a Medicare supplement is likely to spend an additional $6,000 out of pocket on their cancer-related medical expenses. So there are some things, a lot of medical expenses that are not going to be covered by Medicare. For example, certain medicines associated with the side effects of chemotherapy, even though these side effects are uncomfortable, they're not seen as medically necessary to cover. So things like hair loss, things like nausea, for example, anti-nausea medication, if it's administered via in vitro, it's covered. If you take the pills, likely it's not covered.
Right.
So there's some things like that like are medical things that are not going to be covered. But almost 70% of costs associated with cancer are non-medical. So we're talking about things like travel to and from the hospitals, being able to see, especially if you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, you want your healthcare and the likelihood of your surviving being limited to who you're allowed to see and who covers you.
Right.
No, you want to be able to see the doctors. They have the one in Texas. That's like the world-renowned one.
Yep.
Mayo Clinic, alternative forms of medicine.
Right.
When modern medicine fails, oftentimes people go to other forms, alternative forms of medicine. That's not going to be covered by insurance. So having things, travel, pet care, food while you're gone, things like that. For example, when my dad had cancer, we were an hour and a half away from Columbia, Missouri. We lived in literally our neighbors were cows, and they were not very friendly neighbors. They were very loud and inconsiderate. Not important. We'll talk about the cows at some point. Not today because I only have 5 more minutes. But what this is designed for is they had to spend gas to and from every single day to take all of us to Columbia because we didn't have childcare back then.
Right.
Me and my sister were feral, so no one wanted to take us. So it's to take the entire family to and from Columbia 5 days a week for 5 weeks for his cancer treatments. Now, eventually, it was really exciting whenever he was actually feeling super bad and couldn't make it back home because then we got to stay in a hotel for the night. And that was like the worst case scenario. We did not have the money to afford to do that, but there was some or something was going on, you needed to be close to the hospital in case things went wrong. So that was exciting for us because we got to go and spend the night in the hotel. Again, insurance ended up coming and paying for a lot of that stuff on behalf of my parents, but my parents didn't necessarily know how the insurance worked at the time.
Right.
So they had a ton of stress figuring out how are they going to pay for all this stuff. Plus, they weren't working because they were dealing with his care.
Right.
So there was a lot of things where insurance came in and paid for stuff that they weren't expecting it to.
Right.
But before it did, a lot of stress
Mhm.
going on and what was going on with there. So cancer insurance is designed so that the person only has to worry about getting better.
Yeah.
They do not have to worry about any financial insecurities. They don't have to worry about covering some of these non-medical costs. They get to basically do whatever they need to do to focus on their recovery.
I think there's a lot to say that when we talk about insurance and why is it important to begin with, the biggest thing is that you have a plan in place. Like, it's something that you can fall back on. You cannot account for. You mentioned it earlier. Was cancer does crazy things to the human body, the mind, everything like that. And the last thing you want that person who is going through such a big life event to worry about the small life aspects of how's my family feeling, how am I. One of the things that we experienced in our family was like the person themselves feeling like they are a burden to everyone else, and that is just not ever thought about, because you don't ever want to think that way. I think it's human nature to avoid that thought as much as possible, and a product like this removes some of those pin needles of specifics and details and just smooths it out a lot.
Well, cancer is like a family diagnosis. If you have any sort of family connections or you have anybody in your corner, when somebody gets diagnosed with cancer, people run to support them. And so oftentimes, again, like logic doesn't take forefront.
Right.
And people want to do whatever they can to step in to help to provide. And the worst thing that you want to see is somebody having to do a Kickstarter because someone was diagnosed with cancer. You see it all the time. And like oftentimes it's never the person doing it on their own self. It's somebody doing it on their behalf because it's uncomfortable to have to ask for money. And with cancer insurance, of course, we focus on people over the age of 65, which 2 out of 3 adults over the age of 65 will get diagnosed with cancer. But with these products, they go from their family plans in a lot of cases where you can have, your children on these all the way up to, having a family style of plan. So there isn't a person that's not eligible for this plan, except for in some cases as they get too old.
Right.
Or to advanced age. Old's a dirty word. We don't use that here. So keeping that in mind. Now, how to sell cancer insurance, the number one thing that I can recommend is, one, we are huge fans of evoking emotion into it. So asking open-ended questions like, tell me your experience. Do you know anybody who has been diagnosed with cancer? Tell me that experience. Have you ever been diagnosed with cancer? The one thing I will say that I don't like and I hate it and I see it a lot is invoking fear tactics. Right. Because the statistics are scary. The financials are scary. People are terrified of cancer. It's talked about in the media all the time. Right. It's one of the most well-known, well discussed. There's a ribbon for every month, for all this. But fear tactics, though it's a very powerful emotion, it's a high motivator to get people to do something different, like buy cancer insurance. However, as powerful as it is, it's also very temporary. Yeah. The minute that you remove the source of fear, then the importance and everything else starts to wear off either. So if you're the agent, you're the source of fear. When you leave that, we see a huge amount of people who do what's it called whenever you cancel the plan almost immediately? It's rapid disenrollment, but that's for Medicare Advantage. Chargebacks. We see a lot of people get chargebacks because people will cancel the cancer insurance within a year, within 3 months, because whenever finances start getting tight, the fear is no longer there. Right. They cancel that plan. So I don't like that.
Or even like the fear is shifted.
The fear is shifted.
The fear is no longer this. What if this happens? It's this bill is due and I don't have the money for it. That becomes, momentarily a scarier aspect. And so that fear shifts and they don't assign the proper, logical amount of weight to the proper thing that could truly invoke some real fear. Right. That is them realizing the situation that they might be in.
I think like with all products that we talked about, the best way to cross-sell this is in the fact-finding portion of the appointment. Because when you're using fact-finding, what you're doing is you're asking them, invoking emotion, asking them their experience with a cancer diagnosis, whether it be that, because everybody has a cancer story. Right. I've yet to meet a single person who hasn't had that.
Right.
And reminder, your job as the agent is to make them aware, like, hey, were you aware that cancer is the number one cause of medical bankruptcy?
Right.
Were you aware that 70% of cancer, costs associated with cancer are actually non-medical?
Right.
What are your plans? If you do get diagnosed with cancer insurance, walk me through what your process is.
Right.
Walk me through what doctors are you going to see? Who's going to help you in the hospital? How are you going to have caregivers come in and take care of you? Like, what is your plan?
Right.
Because you as an insurance agent, your job isn't to sell insurance. Your job is to help mediate plans when there's financial devastation
Yeah.
due to health conditions. So if they have a plan in place, great. They don't need cancer insurance. That doesn't happen. So they don't have to have insurance, but they do have to have a plan. It's your job to help them alleviate that.
A lot of the things we talk about, and it was mentioned when we did dental vision and hearing briefly, was, if they have a plan about setting X amount of dollars aside into some account or some other financial responsibility, and they're going to plan to use that moving forward, just be real with yourself. How many times is that amount of money actually getting put into that account? How many times is that actually being set aside and saved instead of being used on a rainy day? Dan Mangus has always said it best from my limited time being here, but over the past 4 years, it has stuck with me that his story about, he offers cancer's insurance. He has a client of his came in one day and just was outlining, was a frequent flyer with them, had her a couple of years, and she came in and she was like, hey, do you offer cancer insurance here? And Dan was like, of course, let me grab the application. We can sit down, go through your options. And she outlined, well, it's too late. I already have cancer. Why didn't you tell me about that beforehand?
Yeah, she says, shame on you. I now have to move in with my daughter.
Yeah.
I now have to leave. I'm moving across. I think her daughter was like in California. I now have to leave my home for the last 60 years.
Yeah.
Move in with my daughter across the state because I can't afford to take care of myself. I'm going to need round the clock care. Shame on you for not helping me stay in my home.
Yeah.
And you get that once and you're not doing it again. You know what I mean? That's a mistake that's going to resonate for the rest of your life. And cancer insurance is one that I really feel like if you don't offer it because clients don't know to ask about it because there's so much unique misconceptions about cancer insurance.
Yeah.
If you don't offer it, I do feel like that's eventually going to be an E&O claim. Because
Right.
if you're claiming to be an expert, you're claiming to be somebody who guides people through the healthcare system and financing their healthcare, and you don't talk about the number one cause of medical bankruptcy, I can't even finish that sentence.
Yeah.
That doesn't compute with
Yeah.
me. So
You're a risk advisor. There is a risk, and if you're not advising on it, then I don't know what else to say.
So we do have a ton of training on the cancer insurance, on how to sell it. We should do another cafe episode just to do it justice on cancer
100%.
insurance. We'd love to have Clayton on. Clayton is one of the founders of our CARE initiative, Cancer Insurance Awareness, Resources, and Education, and is very passionate about this conversation. So we'd love to just have more conversation about this. And I would love to talk about how cancer insurance is the perfect revenue recovery, this
Yeah.
AEP,
Yeah.
talking about what's going on with prescription drugs continuing not to be commissioned most likely, and the changes in there, like cancer insurance. Gosh, I want to do more. This isn't doing it justice. The last part is, what carriers do we recommend? My favorite carrier for cancer insurance, I have a couple, but my number one is going to be Aetna.
Yeah.
I love Aetna because they do something called spouse in the house.
Yep.
So if you do a husband and wife plan together, doesn't matter. Like, my husband would love this because I am 8 years younger than him. So they go by who is the youngest spouse, and the rates are based off the youngest spouse.
Yep.
So it's a lot cheaper with Aetna. And I believe I was reading that they only have a 5-year look back.
Correct.
So 5-year look back, great e-application. Aetna is kind of a one-stop shop for a lot of ancillary products.
Very true.
And really easy e-app. So love that. Great agent commissions as well. Call Us is one of the higher level commissions. Another company I really like is GTL. GTL, just because they have traditionally been the ancillary king.
Yeah.
They have one of the best hospital indemnities out there. Their hospital indemnity also has a lump sum cancer rider that basically works exactly like a standalone plan.
Yeah.
I want to get into some conversation about, like, is it better to do a standalone plan versus a rider?
Right where my brain was, I was about to ask you that question, but I
Jury,
think that's a better.
I think we should save that for another episode because I think there's a lot to look at
I
that.
would agree.
The pros and cons of a rider versus a standalone plan, and what we see agents do traditionally and whatnot. But again, we need to hit on cancer insurance a lot more. If you are somebody who does not see the need of cancer insurance, you aren't bought, sold, paid for, talking about this, please call our office. I mean,
Please.
it would take 5 minutes of talking to one of us or 5 minutes of talking to Clayton to really understand why it's almost like it's a crime.
Yeah.
Not a legal crime. Please don't come at me. Don't fact check me. But it is like, just how can you say that you are somebody that advises on financing someone's health care and not talk about cancer?
The third tidbit I'd throw on, like, who do we recommend? I would also kind of throw a Mutual of Omaha on that lump, just because while they do have a 10-year look back, they generally have pretty strong rates for those
Great rate.
that are on the younger side, and that's partly because of that 10-year look back. They understand the risk of their client that they're taking on, so they're really, I think,
And the brand.
the best policy that you offer is the one that you sell at the end of the day.
Don't shop carriers, shop benefits. So by that, we don't mean get a contract with Aetna, Mutual, GTL, and say, which one do you want, client? You get a contract with one of them and say, do you want a $10, $15, $20, or $100,000 benefit? So we'll get into more details on that, but I did let my other people know that I would be a little late for that meeting, so
100%.
we're good.
Yeah.
If you do have any questions, comments, concerns, that's still my phone number. Even if you're watching the recorded version of this, text me. More than happy at any time. I'm actually going to the state fair this week. So if I don't text you, it's not because I don't love you. It's because I don't get service. In Sedalia, Missouri, you put so many hillbillies in such a small town. The
Just
cell
starts
service.
blocking it out.
It's literally like the cell service, kind of like what we saw today in the cafe. Just there is none.
Well, there are 4 of us in this room.
There
right
are
now,
4
so
of us
maybe
in this
that's
room.
What happens.
Everybody get off the Wi-Fi. I'm trying to make a call. But yeah, so please feel free to text me if you are texting the week of this week. Then what is today? The week of today.
The 5th.
Then I'm likely gonna be just hillbillying it up. I will just be barefoot with baby on my hip. I don't have a baby. I have my 5-year-old, but I'll find a baby, put on my hip. Plenty to spare.
With permission.
Maybe. I don't
Well,
know. Feel how froggy I'm feeling. No baby
Might
safe
as well
for me.
jump.
All right, y'all. So until next time, y'all have fun
Make money
and give impeccable service. Thanks, guys.